Most people who come across these video messages that are regularly posted here on my channel don't pay any particular attention, and they just tend basically to scroll on by. More opinions and viewpoints, at times facts that they don't want to hear, and so they don't even bother to pay any attention to what they see. There are a few who do stop in from time to time and listen to what's said here, but most of those people tend to be offended, disappointed, surprised, taken aback, or generally in disagreement with what they hear. But the funny thing about it is that doesn't stop me. That doesn't slow me down. Week after week, you see me here on this channel continually expressing all sorts of controversial views. And the fact that people don't seem to agree with those views doesn't affect me one little bit. A wise person told me one time that truth does not depend on anybody's agreement or approval, that truth stands on its own. And I sort of agree with that philosophy. What do I base my beliefs and conclusions on? Well, I am a Christian man. I come from a Christian background. The current denomination that I favor is the Episcopal Church, the Protestant Episcopal Church USA. I came to that through a long period of traveling through various denominations. I actually grew up in a pseudo-Christian cult known as the Worldwide Church of God, as it was known at that time. Now it's known as Grace Communion International. And I left that and joined a non-denominational Christian church later on, and then eventually moved into a Presbyterian denomination, and now the denomination that I favor is the Episcopal Church. But I base my decisions on morals and ethics on a basic Christian framework, meaning that there are such things as right and wrong, that a lot of the questions that we face in life are morally right or simply wrong. And I think maybe we live in a time when right and wrong are concepts that are beyond most people's understanding, or it's something that they never think about one way or the other. That right is do whatever makes you happy and do whatever you feel, and that each person is able to make his own moral judgments apart from any superior authority. And I don't really agree with that. I believe that universal truth does exist, and there is right and wrong. Now, what right and wrong is in life, I fundamentally disagree with a lot of people about that, in particular the Christian right, because in my view it is right that a society should care for its poor. I think that is made very plain in the teachings of Jesus Christ and in the New Testament, that a society should care for its poor and should not take the hostile attitude that you see so often in the Christian right. I think that the attitudes that you find a lot of times in conservative Republican circles are actually morally repugnant, and they are nowhere near right. So I disagree with them. So the Christian right has never been a place that I felt comfortable. Jesus himself talks specifically about caring for the needs of the poor. You see that in Luke chapter 16 and the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. You also see it in the parable of the Good Samaritan and the parable of the sheep and the goats in Matthew chapter 25. And so individual people and societies do have an obligation to care for the poor. And what that means is that massive programs to assist the poor are certainly appropriate. They are not only appropriate, they are morally mandatory, because church groups and individuals cannot possibly do enough to alleviate the suffering of the poor that we have not only in societies around the world, but also in American society. So my belief in government policies that benefit working class people and the poor are firmly rooted in my interpretations of right and wrong. But the right and wrong moral framework also controls pretty much everything that I believe in. I believe in the golden rule that we should treat other people, or should endeavor to treat other people as we would like to be treated, that we should be kind to other people, that we should look out for the interest of other people, and that we should treat other people fairly. I strongly believe in those things. But sometimes it's hard to make decisions between what is absolutely morally right and what is absolutely morally wrong. Sometimes, in the case of being a voter in a country such as the United States, you find that neither party actually supports what you believe to be right or what you believe to be wrong. Roman Catholics face this issue a lot because the Catholic Church, the doctrines that are taught by the Catholic Church, are not fully supported by the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, so you can't really say that to be a good Catholic you have to be a Republican, or to be a good Catholic you have to be a Democrat, because the Catholic Church has problems with both parties. They have problems with the Republican Party because of their harsh attitudes toward the poor and the less fortunate, and they have problems with the Democratic Party because of abortion and because of liberal positions on sex. And so neither party, the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, actually fits the doctrine of the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not Roman Catholic, but I do consider myself to be Episcopalian, in spite of the fact that I have never been confirmed in that church. But still, I know the dilemma. It can't fully be a liberal person and absolutely can't be a conservative person, because conservatives hate the poor. And they would deny that till the cows come home, essentially, but Republicans and people on the Christian right do absolutely have a total disdain for the poor. So what do you do when, if you're a believer in right and wrong, what do you do when you have to make political choices in the United States? If you can't find a side that agrees with morals and ethics that I believe to be right, what do? You have to make decisions based on the greater good. Now, early in 2016, I was a supporter of Bernie Sanders as the Democratic presidential nominee. However, when he did not win the Democratic nomination, the thundering herd, the great majority of Bernie Sanders supporters, went to Hillary Clinton. But that was a woman that I absolutely could not support, because I thought the results of that would be extremely bad for the country in ways that I have expounded upon many, many times. I have explained many times that if Hillary Clinton had won the presidency, Republicans were still going to win the House of Representatives, and they were going to win the Senate, and it was going to be 4 years of gridlock and essentially nothing getting done. Now, when you have an administration where no progress is made and nothing gets done, the result of that is to punish the incoming administration in 4 years and vote the incumbent president out of office. However, if Hillary had won, and she was the one that everybody was mad at and wanted to vote out of office, and that probably would have been the case considering Republican domination of Congress, then the only way to get rid of Hillary would have been to vote in the Republican candidate, and the Republican candidate in that scenario probably would have been someone like Jeb Bush or Ted Cruz or John Kasich or Marco Rubio or Rick Perry or some other extremist. And so I concluded that the worst possible thing in the scenario that was presented would be for people to go like the thundering herd and vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, I've stated very often and frequently, that my belief that conservatism, movement conservatism, is very evil in many ways because of the attacks that they want to make on the social safety net. Movement conservatives don't like the working class very much. They don't really believe in any kind of worker rights. They are extremely hostile toward people who experience any kind of long-term economic suffering. They absolutely despise the poor. So you get in this situation that who are you going to vote for? On one hand, you can support Hillary Clinton and send the country down this black hole that I just described a minute ago. On the other hand, you can vote for movement conservatives who absolutely despise many of the vulnerable people in American society. Well, Donald Trump came along, and there was a little bit of another option with him, and I didn't ultimately vote for him. What I ultimately did was vote for California Governor Jerry Brown as a write-in candidate, but I refused to support Hillary Clinton. But still, in the end, if it was going to be one of the two, then I actually ended up, and remember I was a Bernie Sanders supporter, I actually ended up being happier that Trump won. And why was that? Because in his policy proposals there are about 3 notable things, maybe 4, that could actually result in some progress in the United States. A $1 trillion infrastructure program. You can make a hell of a lot of things happen with a $1 trillion infrastructure program. You can put an awful lot of people to work, and you can get an awful lot of good things done. Fair trade, that's been an issue for a very, very long time. And he's taken the position that the United States has been victimized in trade agreements and that American workers have suffered. And he's actually the first president in a long, long time who actually proposes to do something about it. Bernie Sanders also said that he wanted to do something about it, but he didn't win. And his proposals were less specific. Trump wants to renegotiate this stuff. So American working class actually could benefit from the Trump administration's renegotiation of trade agreements. Then there is the whole border situation. Now, I know people don't like to hear this, but it is not sustainable for any country in the world, the United States or any other country, to take in an unlimited number of people. And it has been demonstrated through the few studies that have been made on the subject that unrestrained immigration does depress wages for American workers. And that's just a fact. And it's an uncomfortable fact, but it is a fact nevertheless. So the judgment that I made about Trump's victory was that it actually was a better outcome than a Hillary victory, because there are those things that might actually get done. And then you also had the fact that nothing was going to get done about the massive Obamacare problems that were kind of baked into that law. Because if you'd had a Hillary administration and a Republican Congress, well, then nothing would ever get done about the Medicaid gap, nothing would ever get done about out-of-control cost, and the fact that people were having to pay premiums that they didn't expect. They thought they were going to get a lot more help than they got, and a lot of people have not done well under Obamacare. So the possibility for getting anything done under a Hillary administration was just, it just wasn't going to happen. So here's the thing about me and my controversial opinions that I express here on my channel, and I will continue to do. I am an independent thinker. My views on subjects do not depend on approval. They do not depend on agreement. Regardless of what people think, I'm going to make independent judgments on all issues, and I will express those views. Now, if people don't like that, as I've said before, nobody is forcing them to be here. Nobody is forcing them to listen. But the fact that people may not agree with the judgments that I make, and may not disagree, and they may disagree with the things I say, and they may not like the things I say, well, that's kind of too bad, because I'm an independent thinker and I make independent judgments, and my judgments are not dependent on what the majority thinks of what other people think. I'm just an independent thinker. I'm not going to go along with the thundering herd. I'm going to evaluate situations and come to my own conclusions. Now, if people have information that I need to reconsider, or they have information that I hadn't considered before, I will consider that. But with regard to the opinions that I expressed here, people can like it or not. And I think it's very clear that some people who thought they knew me in the past really didn't know me, that they didn't know I was such a maverick, malcontent, and rogue, but that is what I am. And I make no apologies for that. I will continue to express whatever views I see fit. If people like that, great. But if they don't like that, that's not going to change. If they got new information, if they got something I need to reconsider, if they got something I've never considered before, then feel free to present it and I'll think about it. But I'm going to express my views according to the judgments that I make, whether people like it or not. And so that's what you're going to see on this channel, and that's just kind of the way it is.